Hello friends, welcome back to Wawa AS. Welcome to the discussion on daily MCQ. Today is 7th of October 2021 and now we are going to discuss 5 MCQs which are important from the prelims perspective. Now let's quickly begin the discussion. First let us discuss the question that was asked yesterday, and yesterday's question was, which of the following schedule in the constitution contains provisions of the anti-defection law? So this question is about the anti-defection law. A, second schedule, B, fifth schedule, C, eighth schedule and D, 10th schedule. And the correct answer is given by Pankaj Verma and Subham Bashak. So the schedules is very important for the prelims, so we'll just briefly discuss. So this anti-defection law is there in the 10th schedule. So D is the correct answer. 10th schedule is D, 10th schedule is the correct answer. So if you see the first schedule contains the names of the states and UTs. The names of the states and UTs. This is the first schedule. The second schedule contains some of the provisions related to the allowances, privileges and emoluments of President, Governor, Speaker of Lok Sabha and Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha, Chairman of Rajya Sabha and Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha, Speaker and Deputy Speaker of State Legislative Assemblies, Chairman and Deputy Chairman of Legislative Councils, Supreme Court judges, High Court judges and CAG. Okay, so remember, among all the constitutional bodies, only CAG is there in the second schedule, and the third schedule deals with the oath and affirmation related to the Union Ministers of India, the Parliament election candidates. Remember, here the Parliament election candidates and the State Legislative Assembly election candidates, their oath is also there in this third schedule, right? And also the Supreme Court judges, the High Court judges and the state ministers, okay? And also the state legislative members, the parliament members and the CAG. In the third schedule also you have the CAG. And the fourth schedule, if you see, the fourth schedule deals with the allocation of seats in Rajya Sabha. The allocation of seats in Rajya Sabha, this is the fourth schedule, right? And the fifth schedule, if you see, the fifth schedule is related to the provisions related to the administration and control of the scheduled areas and scheduled tribe, okay? The scheduled areas and the scheduled tribes. And the sixth schedule deals with the administration of the tribal areas in the states of Assam, Tripura, Mizoram and Meghalaya. Okay, Ami Maitri. Yeah. So that is the sixth schedule. And the seventh schedule deals with the list, the union list, state list and the concurrent list, the three lists, right? And you have the eighth schedule, which deals with the languages. The 22 official languages of the constitution are there in the eighth schedule. And the ninth schedule, you have these acts and regulations, which originally, or you can say which before 1973, they cannot be scrutinized by the Supreme Court. But now the ninth schedule can be scrutinized by the Supreme Court as well. And you have the 10th schedule, which contains the anti-defection law. You have the 11th schedule, which contains provisions related to the panchayats. Remember, 11th schedule you have panchayats. This can be a tricky question tomorrow in exam. Sorry, this is panchayat. And the 12th schedule is related to the municipalities. So remember this. The 11th and the 12th schedules, right? So now let's move on, guys. These MCQs PDF will be available in our Telegram channel. The Telegram channel details are there in the description. You can just go and have a look, right? Now let's look at the first question. With reference to Lok Adalats, which of the following statement is true? A. Lok Adalats have the jurisdiction to settle the matters at pre-litigative stage and not those matters which are pending before any court. Second one, the Lok Adalats can deal with matters which are civil and not criminal in nature. Third one, every Lok Adalat consists of either serving or retired judicial officers only and not any other person. And fourth one, none of the given statements are correct. So if you see Lok Adalat, basically the Lok Adalats are the statutory bodies. The Lok Adalats are the statutory bodies, and here if you see, the Lok Adalats have the jurisdiction to settle matters at pre-litigative stage and also the matters which are pending before any court. The matters which are pending before any court. So the first statement is wrong, right? And the second statement, if you see, the Lok Adalat can deal with matters which are both civil and criminal. So the second statement is also wrong. And third statement, if you see, every Lok Adalat consists of either serving or retired judicial officers only and not other person. This is also wrong. So the correct answer is D, none of the given statement is correct. Now we will see some information about Lok Adalat. The NALSA, National Legal Service Authority, has been constituted under the Legal Service Authority Act of 1987 to provide free legal services for the weaker sections of the society and organize Lok Adalat for amicable settlement of disputes. The Lok Adalat is one of the alternate dispute resolution mechanism, and it is a forum where the disputes or the cases pending in the court of law or at a pre-litigative stage are settled or compromised amicably. The Lok Adalat have been given the statutory status under the Legal Service Authority Act of 1987. The nature of cases to be referred to the Lok Adalat, if you see, any cases which are pending before any court or any dispute which is not brought before any court, they can be filed before the Lok Adalat, provided that any matter relating to an offence is not compoundable under the law and shall not be settled. They shall not be settled in the Lok Adalat, right? And also, if you see, both civil as well as criminal cases, they can be settled by the Lok Adalat. And the composition of Lok Adalat, if you see, the Lok Adalat has a chairman, 2 members, and 1 social worker. So this is the composition. And the chairman, he has to be a sitting or a retired judicial officer. Okay, and the other 2 members should be lawyers. This is the only thing. Right? So this is all the information that we need to know about the Lok Adalat. Now let's quickly move on. Second question. Which was or were the object or objects of the Queen Victoria's Proclamation of 1858? It's a previous year CSE question of 2014. First one, to disclaim any intention to annex the Indian states. Second one, to place the Indian administration under the British Crown. Third one, to regulate East India Company trade with India. So we have to choose the correct option. A 1 and 2 only, B 2 only, C 1 and 3, and D 1, 2 and 3. So Queen Victoria's Proclamation. Okay, so this is about the Queen Victoria's Proclamation, and if you see closely, the Queen Victoria's Proclamation, this came after the 1857 War of Independence. After the 1857 war, this came. So here, if you see among the statements, the third statement, if you see carefully, to regulate the East India Company's trade with India. So the British government has been regulating the East India trade right from 1813 itself. Okay, so even in 1813 only, all the trading rights, the monopoly of the trading rights were removed for the East India Company. So the third statement is definitely wrong statement. So if you remove the third statement, you have 1 and 2 and 2. So the second statement is absolutely right, to place the Indian administration under the British Crown. And the first statement, to disclaim any intention to annex the Indian states. This is also right. So A 1 and 2 is the correct answer. A 1 and 2 is the correct answer. So Queen Victoria's Proclamation of 1858 aimed at ending the rule of the company and transferring all the power to the British Crown after the 1857 revolt. And it aimed at improving the administrative machinery of the supervision and control over the Indian government. Its objective was to disclaim any intention to annex the Indian states. And the Governor General of India then started to become Viceroy. And Viceroy is the representative of the British Crown. So that means India is placed under the British Crown. And the features, if you see, it provided that India will be governed in the name of the Crown, and the Governor General was given the new title as Viceroy. This is the important thing. And Lord Canning is the first Viceroy. It ended the dual system of the government by abolishing the Board of Control and the Court of Directors and created a new office called the Secretary of State for India in London. The Secretary of State was vested with complete authority and control over the Indian administration, and he is responsible to the legislature of UK. The 15-member Council of India was established to assist the Secretary of State, which is an advisory body. Now let's look at the third question. Consider the following. First one, right to education. Second one, right to equal access to public service. And third one, right to food. Which of the above are human rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? A1 only, B1 and 2 only, C3 only, and D 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer is D 1, 2 and 3. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, if you see, so it is an international document adopted by the UN General Assembly, and there are 30 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. There are 30 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the Universal Declaration includes civil and political rights like right to life, right to liberty, right to free speech, and right to privacy. The Universal Declaration also includes economic, social, and cultural rights as well, like the right to social security, health, and education. Under Article 25 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, and other lack of livelihood in circumstances which are beyond his control. The Article 26 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights say that everyone has the right to education, and education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. The elementary education shall be compulsory. Under Article 21 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country directly or through freely chosen representatives. Everyone has the right to equal access to public service in his country, and the will of the people shall be the basis of authority of the government, and this will shall be expressed in a periodic and genuine elections, which shall be universal and the equal suffrage, and shall be held by the secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures. So this is about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now let's look at the fourth question. With respect to the period of Indian freedom struggle, which of the following statements are correct with regard to the Nehru Report? It's a CSE 2011 question. First one, complete independence for India. Second one, joint electorate for reservation of seats of minorities. Third one, provision of fundamental right for the people of India in the constitution. So choose the correct answer. So in the three given statements, if you see, the complete independence for India is the wrong statement, because under the Nehru Report, a dominion was discussed and not the complete independence. So first one is right. So if you eliminate the first one, option A, C and D gets eliminated, and B, 2 and 3 is the correct answer. Now we will see some important provisions related to the Nehru Report. The Nehru Report, basically it was prepared in 1928. So it was prepared after the challenge which was thrown by Lord Birkenhead with regarding to the formation, or you can say with regard to the framing of Indian Constitution, after Indians opposed the Simon Commission, which came to India in 1928 because there was no Indian member in the Simon Commission. And the political leaders accepted this challenge, and all-party conference was held, and a committee for the appointment of constitution and drafting it was constituted. It was headed by Motilal Nehru, with Jawaharlal Nehru as the secretary. And other members were Ali Iman, Tej Bahadur Supru, Mangal Singh, M.S. Annie, Subhash Chandra Bose, Shab Qureshi, and G.R. Pradhan. The draft constitution prepared by the committee was called Nehru Committee Report or Nehru Report, and the report was submitted at the Lucknow session in 1928 at all-party conference, and is the first major attempt of India to draft a constitution. And some of the important recommendations, if you see, first one is dominion status for India. Second one, 19 fundamental rights were written, and they are universal for both men and women, and everyone above the age of 21 has to be given the right to vote. Equal rights for men and women, and a federal form of government with residual powers with the center. This would be a bicameral legislature at the center, and the ministry would be responsible to the legislature. The Governor General to be the constitutional head of India, and he would be appointed by the British. A proposal for the creation of a Supreme Court, and the provinces would be created along the linguistic lines. This is the important thing, remember this. So the Nehru Report also suggested for the creation of states according to the linguistic lines, in the linguistic lines. No separate electorate for any community. It provided reservation. It provided reservation for the Muslims in a open, or you can say not separate electorate, but in general electorate the reservation is provided. This is the important thing. Only for Muslims it is provided, but it is not provided for other communities in other areas. Okay. Now let's look at the fifth question. Which of the following is a very significant aspect of the Champaran Satyagraha? It's a 2018 question. The Champaran Satyagraha took place in the year 1918. A. Active all India participation of lawyers, students and women in the national movement. B. Active involvement of Dalit and tribal communities in the national movement. C. Joining of peasant unrest to Indian national movement. D. Drastic decrease in the cultivation of plantation crops. Option D can be eliminated because drastic decrease in the cultivation of plantation crops did not happen. And also, A. Active participation of student, lawyers and women, it did not happen because of Champaran Satyagraha. So the first one is also right. And the Dalit and tribal communities of India, so they also did not join because of this Champaran. So C, joining the peasant unrest to India's national movement. Joining. So the Champaran Satyagraha of 1917, if you see, the issue was with regard to the indigo cultivation under the Tinkatiya system, where 3/20th of the total land has to be cultivated by indigo. Gandhiji convinced the authorities to end the system, and demand was accepted, and 25% of compensation was given. It was the first Satyagraha taken up by Gandhiji. It is the first civil disobedience movement. Champaran Satyagraha, remember this. And joining of peasant unrest to the Indian national movement is a very significant aspect of the Champaran Satyagraha. Now let's look at the question of the day. And the question of the day is, with reference to the Constitution of India, consider the following statements. First one, no High Court shall have the jurisdiction to declare any central law to be constitutionally invalid. Second one, any amendment to the Constitution of India cannot be called into question by the Supreme Court of India. So we have to choose the correct option. A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2, and D, neither 1 nor 2. Do give your answer in the comment box, and tomorrow we will discuss this question. And guys, as you know, we provide summaries for Vision PT365, Vision Mains Test Series, Monthly Magazine, and Prelims Test Series. All the summaries are available in the Telegram channel. You can check the quality of these summaries as well. So that's it, guys, from my side. I'll see you again tomorrow with 5 more MCQs. Till then, keep studying and stay tuned. Jai Hind.